This is Earl Amin with the 2020 Foresight Podcast, where CEOs of small to global companies share their insights. It is 6 questions in 9 minutes because top CEOs know how to listen and be concise. So let's get to it. Question number 1. In just a few sentences, tell us who you are and what you do.
Well, thank you for having me on this podcast, Earl. My name is Alex Eckelberry, and I am a CEO, board member, and advisor. I started my career in Silicon Valley 30 years ago, and it's been an incredible ride ever since. I specialize in cybersecurity and technology in general.
Excellent. Question number 2. What's the best thing about being the CEO?
Well, the best thing about being a CEO is putting in more than you take out. It's a maybe a strange way of putting it, but when you create something often out of nothing, when you create more value than you're using, you've actually created value for the community and for the world. And I know this sounds very corny, but when you really look at it, we're not here just to steal air, right? We're here to contribute back into this community of ours. And I think that the CEO gives you the biggest ability to create and manage companies and to move forward that type of purpose. So that's a very metaphysical answer. But another answer is it's just a lot of fun building and creating companies. It's the most fun I think you can have. That's legal. So I love it.
Indeed. Question number 3. I hear from other CEOs that leading their teams and being able to see what lies ahead can be a challenge. Your thoughts?
Well, I think, and this ties into some of your another question that you probably have coming forward. But it's not a solo activity, and any CEO who looks at running a company as a solo activity doesn't understand being a CEO. Full stop. A CEO is a team activity. Whether you use the analogy of a captain on a sailing ship or an orchestra conductor or whatever analogy you want to use, you have one individual that's pulling together a team in a united front and then projecting that team into the future. And when you talk about seeing ahead, that should be done as a team activity. And I have always tried to not be the one that's fully responsible, because if you're the only person in that room who's figuring everything out, A, you haven't built the right team around you, or B, you haven't done a good job of delegating responsibility to that team. You should have people that are working in strategy with you saying, you know what, I see an opportunity here. What about this? Let's move the ball forward here, and let's try to be ahead of the ball. Let's try to be ahead of the puck, to use a better analogy.
Agreed. Well, this kind of ties into question number 4. What piece of insight do you want to share with other CEOs?
I do a lot of coaching and mentoring of those CEOs. Now that I still actively involved in building and running businesses, but I also do a lot of work with other CEOs. And one of the things I see is that many of them will just they'll either take on too much for themselves, or they'll kind of give everything away. And you really want a balance where you want to be the person who's in charge of that business. You also want to build strong people, frankly, if you're lucky, that are smarter than you. That are going to do the heavy lifting for you and with you. So my strongest advice, I have talked to CEOs who talk about, pre-COVID, of course, I'm on the road all the time and I'm doing this all the time and I'm doing this and I can't sleep and I've got so much stress. And I go, whoa, buddy, the company is running you. You are not running the company.
Yes.
And great CEOs, look at Jeff Bezos. He had an interview recently where he says, I get into work around 10 in the morning. He gets up early, he putters around, does things, tries to get one good decision done a day. That's not a lazy thing. That's time management. I'm more respectful of being able to manage your time so you can have work-life balance, see your family, do the things you need to do, but also move the ball forward with your business. And, great CEOs work hard. You work hard. It's not an easy job, but you also can work smart. You can develop your team to do the heavy lifting for you and with you. And that's the magic of being a great CEO.
Well said, yet again. Question number 5. What other successful CEOs like yourself would you like to acknowledge and should be on my podcast?
Well, I thought about that, and you always have one or two people that hit you really hard between the eyes when you think about these types of questions. People that had a big impact on your career. And there's a fellow by the name of King Lee, and there's a long story behind King, which I won't get into in this very short podcast. King was a turnaround expert and a management expert who was my first real direct report CEO at a large company. And he worked with me on developing my career and was a tremendous impact. So, there are those early people and look at that. When I talked earlier about, building creation and creating jobs, think about that, yourself being that person to someone else that, I was in my 20s and I hope I have those kinds of people that will say things about me not because of any ego, but because it's important that I'm helping other people build their careers. So sure, King Lee would be the person I'd mentioned, but I would also say, try to be that person to someone else where you've helped them out, given them some tips, helped them kind of move the ball forward. And that is nothing more gratifying than that.
Indeed. Now for the final question number 6. How do you celebrate a win?
Well, that's a very good question. It depends which type of wins. So I've been involved in the sale of quite a few companies. And in those cases, look, I'm going to be, a little bit flamboyant. I'm going to buy myself a nice toy, right? You got to buy yourself something, give yourself a treat. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Rolex watches. So yeah, okay. Yeah. I'll buy myself a Rolex watch and I'll buy myself a deal watch and it'll go away and I'll probably never wear it, but it's just something that just kind of commemorates the deal for me. But also it's about celebrating those moments with the people that were around you. And, it means it's very funny. I had a huge business success early on in my career. And a lot of it had been due to a bunch of people in our warehouses back in the days when we actually shipped product. Now it's done electronically, and taking the whole team out to a really, really nice steak dinner. It was so much fun. I mean, we had a gas and here's all these kind of rough and ready warehouse guys and take them out to a good dinner and just give them the best dinner of their life. That's a celebration of a success. So that's part of the whole game, right? Bring other people into the party and don't just make it a solo activity. And I think that's kind of how I would cap this podcast is, I get the thing that upsets me the most is when people make these things a solo activity. Bring others in, bring your family in, bring your kids to work, bring your problems to your wife or your spouse to help you, and bring the others in the company into your success. And that's where you get the true magic happening because, we really are part of a bigger community.
Very good. Very well said. Alex, it's been a great pleasure having you on today. How can people find you?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn, Alex Eckelberry. I've got the funny last name, but anybody can find me on LinkedIn and probably all over the internet too. Anyway, but thank you again.
Very good. This is Earl Amin with the 2024 Site Podcast. For more insights, go to LinkedIn and search for The Gray Owl Company. Alex, thank you very much.
It's my pleasure.